Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name, do solemnly swear.
Do solemnly swear.
That I will support and defend.
That I will support and defend.
The Constitution of the United States.
The Constitution of the United States.
Hey everybody, so for this next section of the course, we're going to be talking about, we're going to be looking into the future, this next chapter of your life. We've talked about the past, examining it, your understanding and really collecting all of the wisdom that can be gained from that past section of your life.
It's definitely there.
Oh,
There is wisdom there.
There is there. It is there.
Find
It is there. Even if you were in the Marine Corps infantry, you can get wisdom from your life.
Plenty.
Yeah.
Plenty.
Next, we looked at the current you. And the big thing that I want to highlight here is you are really taking a look at internally who you are right now and really starting to build that identity of who you are outside of the military, or who you are outside of this last chapter of your life. And then the other big thing that I want to highlight, because this will be important soon, is understanding the external constraints that are on your life. Remember, there are preferences. These are things that can change. And then there are constraints. And these are things that can't change at all. Now we are looking into the future, and we are going to give you some of our philosophy on how you begin to ideate through this next chapter of your life, and also how you can start at the top of the discovery funnel, really.
That's right.
So there are going to be 5 things that we're going to be talking about in this specific section. And the first one that we're going to be talking about is reframing problems. And really the concept here of reframing, it's not that crazy. If you encounter resistance as you are moving through the discovery funnel with an idea that you're really into, but you hit a wall, try and reframe this problem so that it's not a problem anymore. And then generally, this will allow you to build, or at least maneuver around, a lot of these things that look like insurmountable objects when they're really just issues that need to be looked at from a
It's just a
different
change in course.
100%.
Right. And one of these that I ran into, I was looking to get out. I thought about going back to school.
Yeah.
And I was like, we're going all the way to the top or not?
Yeah.
We won't get into the details. And for everyone who goes to a great MBA program, like that's awesome. Or you go to school and it's a great program. That's awesome. I applied to a few and it didn't work out. Didn't get in, which at the time I could have been like, oh, I suck. This sucks. It all sucks. Nothing's going anywhere. You're a loser, terrible transition, and then just quit. Or it was a reframing of the problem. It was like, all right, that wasn't the COA. That wasn't the course of action. That was for me. That's not a loss. We're just going to shift. We're going to move to the new problem set. That wasn't a problem to stop us, to stop me on figuring out what's best. It's time to, okay, understand, reframe the transition to what's the next best thing, identify new targets, and then go.
There's really 2 types of problems that you're going to encounter as you're moving through this discovery process. The first are problems that you can reframe and move around, but then the next group, there is a term for them. They're called gravity problems. And that means you can't solve them. They're not going anywhere and you can't fix them. And they're called gravity problems because if you focus on them, they suck you in, they suck in all of your time, all of your energy, and you're not going to go anywhere. It's a black hole.
Yeah.
And the reason why we wanted you to really identify your constraints, see, call back, is because those are most likely going to be your gravity problems. And understanding what those problems are right from the jump is going to save you so much time, so much energy, and it's going to allow you to really focus on things that can be worked on and things that can be moved towards versus things that aren't gonna
you can't change it all. And so like for yours, I would say there's like fixed and there's semi-fixed, like ones that I might as well consider a gravity problem, right?
Yeah.
So for you, your spouse was in the military.
Yep.
The fixed gravity problem, don't try to mess with it. Like that's it. Maybe it's a medical condition or something else.
I am not going to Montana because my wife cannot go to Montana. So why would I even take the time in trying to figure out how to make it work?
And then another one, it would be semi-fixed, right?
Okay.
Because my spouse was like, I hate cold weather. I don't want to live anywhere that's cold weather.
Yeah.
Right, like Minneapolis or whatever, right? Snow. And so is that fixed in stone, never going to change? Like, no. But is it something that I want to try to change?
No.
No, it's not something I
No.
want to try to change. And that's so these gravity problems can be like so fixed, there's nothing you're going to do about, but they can also be fixed enough, right? So take the time to understand what these are, because that could be something I can get into, or reframe. Great. That leaves half the United States still for me to move to. Tons of opportunities. And companies are so global now that you can work for almost any company remotely, but then they have lots of locations. And so this could have been a big thing to fixate on and get sucked in, but nothing about that was going to move me towards being successful.
No.
So gravity problem, got it. Note, change of course for that. And then you can go back, reframe what's new.
It's a great way to continue moving. And one of the pieces we talk about later is bias for action, which is just the concept of constant forward momentum. Constantly reframing the problem is a great way to do that. The next piece that we're going to be talking about is curiosity. And curiosity is exactly what it sounds like. Lean in to what you think you're
Like
interested in.
this.
Yes,
So stupid.
you're interested in me.
Make sure you cut that, because that's such a stupid joke.
Don't cut that.
Carry on.
Lean into what you're curious about. Buster's curious about me, so he leans into me. But the big thing that I want to highlight here is this is your chance to really explore options that you might have never thought could be your livelihood. Don't ever just shut something off because you think, oh, I could never do that. Oh, it could be stupid. Oh, no one does that. One big piece of advice that I'll give you is there is no perfect version of a life well lived. There's only a perfect version for you. And so do not shut yourself off just because you think other people would think your desire is weird. And so one way that you can really exercise this curiosity is just imagine that you have an infinite number of lives. And now imagine what some of those really good lives in your infinite number of lives would be. And if you want to get even more granular, and this is a great plan, I didn't do it. I don't know if you did, but take some time and write out 3 5-year plans. And for the first one, make it pretty safe, like getting out of the military. I'm going to go be a government contractor or a civilian. I'm going to stay in my lane,
Comfy spot.
very close. I'm going to leave out in uniform one day, come back in a shirt and tie the next. That's a great one. And now imagine that going great and see what that's like. The next one is what you think you want to do tomorrow. So like your first inclination when getting out of the military, transitioning into the next piece, the next chapter of your life, whatever that primary thing you think you want to do is, imagine that going away and you can't do that. What's your second option going to be?
What's the next thing?
What's the next thing?
Yeah.
Now imagine that and write down what that 5-year plan looks like. And remember, be optimistic when you're doing this. And then finally, wildcard plan. No inhibitors. There is nothing holding you back. Take all of those things we told you to be very mindful of, your gravity problems, and throw them out the window. And the reason why we want you to do that is because we want you to be as creative as possible. We really want you to just dive into some really cool, really creative places here.
So I was a Marine Corps tree. The next thing would be something very similar to that. So government contracting, BI, some government organization.
Which you did, which you looked at.
The next is what I think I want to do, and that goes away. So it was this like general term of ops, which doesn't really translate to anything specifically, but I would say like, okay, after that would be sales, let's say. So I could look at sales. The last wild one is I want to be a astronaut.
Yeah.
Or like in the space industry. I had no experience in, and I want to go work for Elon, SpaceX.
Yeah.
Like that would be kind of like, so exercise those out to create the spectrum of curiosity, and that'll help to influence the top of this discovery funnel mindset, or discovery funnel process.
When I was going through these ideas, I didn't go and make these 5-year plans the first time that I was getting out. I should have, but once I was going through this exercise, once I learned about it, one of the wild card ones that I always came back to was like director, like film, something in film.
Really?
Yeah, I think it's super cool. And is it my job? Not at all. I stayed in cybersecurity, but it is a reason why I pursued creating this course. And it allowed me, while it's not my primary means of providing for my family, I knew that it's something I was interested in, and so I found a way to at least stick my feet in.
And this could influence location ideas too, right?
Of
So let's
course.
say your crazy one is you want to be a hunting guide,
Yeah.
right? This could then modify your location preferences and where you want to go, because then maybe there's still a way to do this part-time. Recognizing who you want to be, what you want to be in this next chapter.
But if you want to be a hunting guy, don't go to New York City.
Maybe not.
No, unless you
Maybe
want to hunt rats. They're pretty big up there. Yeah. So that's really curiosity as we see it in a nutshell. And now we're going to explore radical collaboration. Radical collaboration, I want to say right off the top, is it the most important part of this, like one of the most important pieces of the discovery funnel?
Totally.
Totally. And why is that?
Because the radical collaboration is you talking to other people,
Yeah.
right? It's not you working on this on your own, right? I know myself and my peers when we got out, and all the folks in my TRS class or TAPS or whatever you want to call it, we all thought we had to do this on our own, right? And we thought that you could watch YouTube videos or read articles or think you knew what the hell you were reading when you read Forbes or the New York Times, right? Like, I didn't have a clue what any of that was.
No.
Right?
Not at all.
And radical collaboration is not only collaborating with those that you're getting out with, right, and spending time with those. The radical collaboration is reaching out into the networks that you have access to. That's through LinkedIn. That's through Facebook. That's through
Veteran
your
groups.
command, veteran groups. It's pretty much anything. It can be also geographical locations. You're like, I want to move to Dallas. You call the Dallas Chamber of Commerce. You want to move to Atlanta, you call the Atlanta organization that runs whatever function you're in. There's tons of industry conferences. And you reach out and you say, I'm a veteran and I want to learn about this. Can I have your advice? This is the radical collaboration. This is what makes the biggest difference in stepping out into something that you want to step into compared to something that you have to step into.
And the primary thing that I want to highlight with this idea of radically collaborating with others is somewhere somebody is living your perfect life.
That's right.
If you want to be a military spouse that works from home and does cybersecurity consulting for Amazon Web Services, I'm a great person to talk to because I can tell you all about it.
That's exactly what it is.
And you can figure out through your conversations with me if what you think you want to do is actually what you want to do.
Right.
You want to be a chief of staff at a startup that's trying to really
It's against the ropes.
get up and fly. Yeah. He's a great guy to talk to. And so this is going to roll well into this next piece that we talk about, but go out and really test out your preconceived notions by talking to others. And you can honestly not talk to too many people.
No, and this could be for everything. This could be
Yeah.
the company, right? So you want to learn about Amazon, Microsoft. You want to learn about Shell, right? So it could be company. It could be the function, the job. It could be, I think I want to move to Bozeman, Montana. Guess what? You can find veterans that live there right now. You can call the VFW post. You can call the Marine Corps League that's out there. Test the waters. Do you want to move to California? Try it out. Try it out by calling and learning. You want to move to Texas? I can tell you about it and different things like that. So this radical collaboration is not just the company, the function. It can also be lifestyle. It can be at the very end of the career arc. It can be at the beginning of the career arc. Whatever that is, I think that this is the piece that you do not skip. We talk about a lot of that, like don't skip, but get out there and have virtual cups of coffee on Zoom and stuff, because there's a lot of vets that want to help out because they know and are compassionate and empathetic to the situation that you're in right now.
Really to highlight how this works through the entire funnel, when I was trying to figure out my why, like all of these things that I didn't know that exist in Block 2, the way that I figured all of it out was I reached out to veterans who had transitioned. That was you, and that was a bunch of other people. And I asked, how did you get out successfully? And then they pointed me to most of the resources and people and organizations that gave us what we ended up putting into Block 2. Once I'd figured that out, I was like, man, what do I want to do? Which is Block 3. That's the next section. And I reached out to, again, veterans, people in the industry, and I said, I like these concepts, what does that look like? And they were like, that sounds like this job or this job. I was like, huh. Then I went and talked to people in that job and I was like, does that actually vibe? And then they said yes or no. And then once I had figured out what I wanted to do, which was consulting, I went and was said in block 4, who do I want to do it for? And so at first I was like, back when I had my whole snafu of like, I'm going to work for a startup. And then God, that got killed. Done. Then I had to go back through, figure out that consulting was a great move. And then I realized large tech companies, those really satisfy all of my gravity problems and preferences. And so then I reached out to people who worked at Amazon, Google, Deloitte, Accenture, all of these different people who have consulting bodies in cyber. And I asked, how is it working for them? What's it like? And so then finally, using this radical collaboration, going through the discovery funnel, I realized I wanted to be a security consultant at Amazon Web Services. And I used the final piece of the funnel, which is how to get that job.
Make it happen.
Make it happen. But it
So,
all was
and the
through
bottom line
radical
of
collaboration.
all these examples, is get out there, collaborate. And the radical part is you need to do it more than what feels comfortable.
Yep.
You should meet with multiple people a week on what's going on.
We've already talked about how it's repetitive. This is a repetitive, cyclical, you're going to go through this many times. And all of these, don't look at them as failures. Think of them as prototypes. You're just prototyping a lot of different ideas. You're asking the right questions. You are exposing your assumptions, which coming from the military out to the civilian world, you're going to have a lot of assumptions that are wrong. And then you involve everybody with your ideas. You need to do that because you don't know anything, and that's okay. And the way that you know is by putting your ideas out in front of a ton of people. And as you talk through them, you're going to become more confident. And then when it comes interview time, you're going to be able to tell your story. You're going to be able to tell them why you want this job. And you're going to be able to talk about the company and the role because you've done all this exploration and prototyping yourself, which is fantastic.
Another metaphor and way to think of this is a mosaic. And so every conversation that you have is another piece to put onto that mosaic. And eventually you'll come into clarity on what future you're trying to build.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That was really good.
I thought you only did crayon drawings, but you're talking about
but that was good.
mosaic.
That was
I
good,
just came up
yeah.
with that. Eventually you'll be in an interview on the back side of this, and they'll say, why do you want to work here? And why do you want to work on my team? And you'll say, sir, ma'am. You won't say, sir, ma'am. You'll say, I want to work here because this is the future I want to live, and here's why. I'm looking for these things. You have that. This is the lifestyle. I believe that's true, and you need to be correct in those assumptions at that time to solidify your opportunity. Build out this mosaic with the conversation. We'll teach you how to do that. But this is the critical aspect of what that's like. So prototype all of those and get these nuggets to put onto your mosaic and bring the future into clarity.
And that really wraps up radical collaboration. And we're going to move on to the next piece, which is being mindful of the process.
Don't skip radical collaboration.
Never skip it. Most important thing. The next piece we're going to be talking about is being mindful of the process. And really, all this means is understanding where you are in your discovery funnel process and really just being mindful that when you're in this broad discovery phase, you're casting your net very wide. But once you have a couple of really concrete options, like it's crunch time. And you need to take those few really good ideas and you need to focus on them and be disciplined to not go outside of those options. A great example of this is I was very used to exploring opportunities, searching, hunting for all of 2021. I was in hunt mode. Then I get a job at Amazon.
Because you had a long time.
Yeah.
You had a long
Had
runway.
started looking in February of 2021. And then I got out of the military in January of 2022.
So you had 11-month time.
I had 11 months, yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I was so in hunt mode that once I got to my job in Amazon, I wasn't really mindful of where I was in my process. And I kept looking. And I remember I called you once and I was like, hey, there's this sales job. That looks really cool. And you're like, dude, chill. You've been at your job for 5 months. Like, people don't just leave like that.
Yeah.
And you're in a good spot. And it took me a while to realize, like, I was in a great spot, and I am in a great spot. But I was not being mindful of my process, and I was not fully dedicating myself to I hadn't transitioned well from searching, looking, to really dedicating myself to the cause.
Well, that's on the backside, right?
Yeah.
And so inside of this, in the discovery funnel mindset, the discovery funnel process, which is iterative, constant, is that as you start to neck it down, you will come to the realization that I want to be in technology. I want to be in consumer goods. And once you recognize that, there are hundreds of opportunities inside of that. So once you have this confidence, that's the industry I'm really interested in. Let's take the other ones and set them on the shelf for now. You can still go back, but let's be mindful of where you are in moving down the funnel. Set them to the side, and now let's hyper focus inside of a specific industry. And now let's open up the funnel, in a sense, again, at a new level around different companies. And then the roles, and all of this fits into this future coming into focus.
And another way that you could think about it is at the very top, we're gathering as much information as possible. Then we're narrowing down our options. And then you're going to choose, at some point, you're going to choose an option. And once you choose that option, my biggest advice to any of you out there is just, you made the choice, move on. Once you've made that choice, be good with that choice.
Yeah, once you feel good,
Yeah.
go for it.
Yeah. But one of the biggest things that we see is people start, like, hindsight's 2020. People regret decisions that they made based off of information they did not have.
Right.
Like, I left the military, then COVID happened. Now I'm struggling to find a job. Why did I do that? You can't do that to yourself. You have to move on from that decision because you did not know that. You did not know that all that was going to happen. And you have to be okay that you made the best possible decision with the information that you had at the time. Because if you don't do that, then you're just going to have paralysis by analysis, and it's like you'll never get anything done.
There's too many options.
There's too many options. And you have to say, I made the best decision with the information that I had
at the time.
The next piece that we're going to be talking about, the final piece, is bias for action, which I like for a lot of reasons. One, it's an Amazon leadership principle, and I love that one. But more importantly for you in the discovery funnel is, do not let friction, roadblocks stop you from taking steps towards this next chapter of your life. If you aren't in the military and you are just deciding to transition from one career to another, one job to another, the reason why this is so dangerous is you can literally just stagnate. And you can stay there forever. And that's really bad, because if you're not happy, you're not going to become happy, most likely.
Right.
And why it gets really scary for us leaving the service is there is a date when you are leaving, and it's going to happen whether you like it or not. And so if you become paralyzed because you do not act, you're still going to get out of the military on the exact same day, whether you're prepared or not.
Yeah. And also you're going to get passed over. There's going to be a lot of recruiters that will read your resume and say, there's no buzzwords on here that match with what I'm supposed to be looking for. They're going to pass over you. It's going to hurt. And you're going to feel like you're not good enough. It's going to happen. You're also going to do initial interviews. You're never going to move on. You won't hear back from them. You will get ghosted. They're busy. And they honestly don't care about your feelings because you're not help. That's not about their quota, right? What is their personal incentives? So you're going to get no responses back. You will get passed over. You might move all the way through the entire recruiting process and not get selected. You will be the number 2. Okay, so these are very discouraging events. You must take it and say, what did I learn from this? Reframe, like we talked about. Have a bias for action for moving to the next objective. Move to the next one. The next opportunity, because it's there. It's up to you to get there. If you quit, if you feel sorry for yourself when you get passed over, because you will, that's where you start like the negative spiral. The analysis paralysis is where you start feeling like, I made a mistake. This isn't good enough. You're wrong. You do just fine. But you must have this bias for action of moving through the problem set, not through it. But You got to take what happened, acknowledge that it happened. What are the learnings from this? And then push to the next thing because there's more of them out there. System of success, it's a volume of fire play until you start necking it down in that target base of like, where do you want it?
And again, for all of our Murphy Law fans out there,
Yes.
no plan survives contact. It's gonna go wrong. Again, example that I've already used. Thought I wanted to work as a startup, and that plan fell completely apart. And so I had to completely readjust, start back at the top, and then work my way through the funnel all over. I was interviewing next week,
The next week.
the next week, when this dude told me, and I was like,
You're right.
"You're right."
I had to totally recount.
And I had to hit up those interviewers and say, "Hey, I can't do this." And that was embarrassing for me, but I had to do it because I knew it wasn't the right choice. And it worked out. But if I had let that little bit of adversity stop me, then I probably would have ended up in a job
Yep.
I didn't like.
One of the mindsets inside of sales is that every no gets you closer to a yes. And that's something that I really implore you to think about is that every time you get passed over, every time you don't get a call back, interview, they never call back, you don't get the offer, you must think to yourself, this is closer to the role that I'm going to receive. This is one step closer. I need to actually, when I start off, I need to get through these first 5 no's before I get to that yes. Okay, cool. There's the first one. Awesome. There's the second one. Knew that was coming. And if you create this mindset of there will be no's, right? And you're learning from every single one. I want my interviews on my first one to be way worse than the interviews on 15 interviews and to improve the whole time. And so every opportunity you have to interview is a great rep.
Yeah.
The interview that matters. And now you don't know if it matters because it could be the one, but this is the mindset of bias to reaction. You know, I really like these other 2 points that you have here at the bottom.
The last 2 points that we really want to talk about here is the unattainable best is the enemy of all of the available betters, which is really, there is no perfect option. Most likely, like if it's out there, call us, tell us, but you're probably not going to get everything you want, and that's okay. Just gather the information and make the best possible decision. And if you have taken the time to look at your past self, understand your past self, you understand your current situation, and you've taken the time to radically collaborate, the most important thing, and really prototype through a lot of ideas. When you get to the point that you made a decision, you can say, I made the best available decision with the information that I have. And then the final piece that we really want to hammer home on top of that is there are many versions of a well-designed, well-explored life. How I did it is different than how he did it, and it's definitely going to be different than how you do it. And so don't let other people dictate your happiness, and definitely don't think that just because someone else walked down a certain path, you have to as well.
Right.
Or
that's the only way to be successful.
It's not. And that is just a major trap that people fall into, that I saw this other person do this thing and then they're successful, so therefore I must do X to be considered successful. That is not true. Once you have identified the things that externally make you feel on top of the mountain, the things that make you externally in the pits, stuff that brings out the best in you, stuff that brings out the worst in you.
Part 1 of the past.
Part 1 in the past. You understand who you are outside of this past chapter of your life, and you understand what are my constraints, what are the gravity problems that I can't maneuver around.
That's the present day.
If you've taken all of this to really define your current situation and the current you, whatever you decide to do to fit all of that information is probably going to make you, I would hope, happy, because you've taken the time to understand yourself and your situation and understand what works best for you. And that's going to make you successful. So thanks for taking time with us, guys. We really appreciate it. And we're going to see you guys all on Block 3.